Welcome back. We got a lot going on today. A lot going on this week. The Trump administration just keeps on choo-chooing. We're talking about steam engine. But no, we've had a lot of local news, one of which is wildfires. Josh, you want to introduce us to the wildfires?
Sure. So actually, I went to I don't know about you guys, but I went to the beach 2 weeks ago, and we were driving down there, and all of a sudden, big plumes of smoke were in our way. And the person who I was with, I was telling her that, they do a lot of controlled burns here. It's not totally out of the norm. Then we turn the corner and we see that the smoke is like totally encompassing the road. And I was like, well, that's not normal. Then we start seeing planes and helicopters flying around. It was burning throughout the night. And, come to find out, there's actually a lot of wildfires going on in South Carolina. And it's recently come out that this was not caused by a controlled burn gone wrong, which is what I was thinking. It was caused by some lady had been cooking s'mores in her backyard, and the timbers just tumbled out into the dry brush, and things got out of hand.
Dude, I don't know about you, but I like s'mores. I don't know if I like them enough to burn down an entire county, but I can enjoy a s'mores. Throw marshmallow over the fire. But in this kind of wildfire of wildfires, we our local representative had a show up on the news to kind of give a little bit of a town hall and talk through it. This is Russell Fry reacting to protesters at the wildfire.
We had 2 town halls in the last month, and one on, we actually had 3, a telephone town hall and 2 in person. So we're always accessible to the public. So all the folks that say town hall, they're George Soros funded left-wing agitators. They do this around the country, and we do our stuff. We're answerable to the people. That's why we won 65% of the vote in the last election.
So I would say those protesters is so misplaced. I can back the congressman up on that. That past week when he mentioned the town halls, I invited him. We had an economic development conference in Latta, and we had about 80 or 90 people, and he came and he answered every question that was asked of him. So he has been very accessible. Those protesters, that was out of place.
He did call him George Soros funded, didn't he?
So let me ask, because I had a little bit trouble hearing the video myself here in studio. He was there to talk about the wildfires, right?
Correct.
What were they shouting? I couldn't hear it.
They were essentially, the protesters were there to say that he doesn't care about his constituents, and there's nobody can really get to him. He just shows up for cameras, and which to Rodney's point, I get texts and calls fairly often because he mentioned he does phone town halls. I mean, they call my phone. There's lists. If you want to get in touch with him, you can get in touch with him. And if you don't want to, there's a list you can get on that. They will get in touch with you. And so I get calls all the time and say, hey, we're starting a town hall in 15 minutes. If you want to be there for it, you got any questions, stay on the line. And so if you really want to talk to our congressman, shout out to Russell Fry. He is accessible to his constituents.
And I can tell you from previous, when I was with the congressman prior to him, Congressman Rice, they'd actually have planned. I mean, they would bust people in at times, so you don't even know if that's your constituents to start with. I think they were yelling town halls.
Yeah.
Well, that tells you they don't know, because he is very, very active. They just want a session where they can, I bleep this out, bitch is what they want to do.
Rodney.
That's exactly
I didn't feel good. I did not feel good about that.
Say it with your chest. Get it out.
I was kind of timid with it, wasn't I?
Are those what we would call the George Soros funded people? I mean, is that this USAID funding through NGOs that then pay for pallets of bricks to be stuck beside glass buildings? I mean, these are the same people from 2020, the Summer of Love. And
they probably didn't start yelling until they saw the light on the cameras from the media. I mean,
for sure.
They know how to work.
Well, they got to yell loud. They got to yell for 3 people. I mean, there's probably 12 out there. They got to speak up, make it seem like there's more than there are. But
well, I think, this whole, not to get off topic, but this whole administration now, it has emboldened our folks like Congressman Fry. I mean, I would even consider not even paying them any attention, honestly. I really would. Not defeated.
I think you're right, because, you see like the Zelensky meeting, where Trump and Vance were in there and kind of went a little off course of this candid retort to them trying to grandstand and virtue signal against us. When you have somebody like President Trump or Vice President Vance that are willing to kind of stand up for the Congress and the Senate, or these people that are on their side, we haven't had that for a long time.
And in yesteryear, we catered to that so much. Felt like we had to answer their questions and not go off script. Well, you're seeing a new day where this administration goes off script, but they speak candidly and whatever's on their mind. And I've got a great appreciation for that. It's real. It's genuine at that point because it's not rehearsed and read.
Well,
I don't know if JD Vance would be in that camp. For me, I know I'm kind of the naysayer here.
There's your disagreement.
But I definitely think
he broke the huddle again.
No, yeah, you're right. But definitely, I can't deny that there is a change in like the atmosphere. There's like this. There is this new aura that's going around in politics these days. I don't want to get too off on a tangent here, but yeah, I think ultimately you guys are right.
Yeah, and it's confidence is what it is. When you speak off the cuff, you're a very confident person. And I see what you say about the vice president. Even though I think he has a great deal of confidence as well, he's certainly going to be a little bit more scripted and planned out. I mean, that's who he is. And to your point in that Zelensky, it played very well, I think.
Yeah, I think it did. Well, it allows, having that confidence comes from having somebody that's willing to back you, even if there's a minor slip up. And so when we have these minor slip ups and you have a administration that's willing to back you, even though it's okay, they're not going to crucify you for minor slip ups. It allows you to open up some, and it allows you to kind of go against the grain in a cultural way, in a societal way that has not been had since. Before Reagan, I don't know, a long time.
Well, you if you watch today, Meet the Press, I'm a sucker. It's one of my favorite shows, and I normally watch it before I go to church. I just used a bad word a while ago, and I'm talking church now. But I even notice all the guests on there, they're more bold than they have ever been. I mean, they don't let that host just run over them. They finish answering the questions the way they want to answer them, and they're not being shut down. And that's being emboldened by the administration, I believe.
Yeah, I think it lends to a bit more of where the mindset is of the populist. And if as the populists shift, the populists are being shifted by this vibe that we keep talking about, and this discussion of inevitably the Matt Walsh and the Jubilee, we covered that the other day.
Yeah.
Basically the question is going to end up as what is an American, and this rise of, or at least the conversation of nationalism is coming to the forefront, and I think that's what's going to have to happen. Is they're going to have a backing from an administration that is in power to allow for these conversations to be had.
Agreed.
And I do want to get into, we talk about these positions of power. We're going to get into, I'd like to, as we go along, kind of break down, who we want in positions of power at what levels. And I think that's what we're going to get into here in a second. Next, we got Tucker, and then we got Massie, and then we'll jump into that. This is Tucker Carlson on his show with Chris Cuomo. You can have opinions on Cuomo all you want. I'm sure both of you do. But there's a clip kind of calling out a senator on blocking the JFK files.
Okay, so I've always thought that. And then in January, there was a scramble over who's going to get what jobs in the new administration. And at one point, there was someone who was being discussed for a job in the intel world, and a member of the SSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Senate Intel Committee, went to the people making the decision and said, you cannot hire this person because this person will be certain to push for the release of the JFK files. So this is in 2025, less than 2 months ago, and you have a sitting member of the United States Senate whose main goal is to keep those files secret. And then you have to ask yourself, what is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And where's your boy Kash Patel? I mean, he went in there to supposedly bust all this up.
I can't answer that.
He put out this weird tweet, that was very general, like, things are going to change and we're going to do this. And after we learned that someone under his control now, right, because he's the head of the FBI, in that office that's under him, why wasn't he there? Why didn't he go there and say, give me the files, give them to me?
Weren't you just saying the deep state's not real?
I don't know. I don't believe in the deep state as a boogeyman.
What's going on?
But look, they're his guys. I'm just saying, why didn't he go there and say, give me the files?
So let's just use logic. I can't answer that question. I think it's a great question. Yeah. But let's just use logic for 1 second. Clearly, if you watch this, in my case, for the same as you, 35 years, watching this stuff carefully, and somebody, gets in office, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and then like 5 days later, they're like, well, actually, someone has called that person to say, there's something you didn't know. Here are the consequences of doing that. Someone has applied very serious pressure on this person. Pressure so serious that person is willing to humiliate himself.
So wait a minute. Here's the part I don't understand.
Who's that person exerting the pressure?
But you are uniquely qualified to get this answer, because one of us can call the president of the United States right now and ask him. And the other one is me. So why don't you know?
That's a great question.
It's the only kind I ask.
So what I brought to it was the knowledge that a member of the Senate Intel Committee, I'm not guessing, called over and said, you cannot appoint this person.
So why don't you expose that person, first of all, so we can start chasing after him?
Tom Cotton of Arkansas did that.
Tom Cotton?
Yes, correct.
And did you ask him?
I haven't. No, I haven't asked him.
What the hell's going on with you?
I agree with Cuomo. Why didn't he call?
Before we get into the Tom Cotton thing, I just want to state that Chris Cuomo is funny yet arrogant at the same time. He only asks great questions.
You know who else is?
Unless he's on CNN, then he doesn't ask good questions.
You know who else is funny and arrogant?
Who's that?
Donald Trump.
Me?
You like him, don't you?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No.
Please,
after you.
I was going to continue on. You finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I think Cuomo raises an interesting question. I definitely think, I know, Rodney, you're kind of more skeptical about the conspiracy side of things, but I definitely believe there's some element of truth to what he's saying, where it's like once it's like they're going to wait for Kash Patel to get, I know he's confirmed, I'm talking in like retrospect here, but it's like, we'll see what happens. Okay, Kash Patel's in. We'll wheel in the like perfect one-to-one clones of his family and have like elephants trample him or something. Like they just show him horrors beyond human comprehension to say, look, this is what's going to happen to you if you do anything we don't say. That's how like controlled I think Zeb and I would agree. I think that's how controlled we think it is.
Well, let me lay this out a little bit, because this video is I think 2 or 3 days old, and I'm sure he filmed it maybe a week before to kind of edit and prep it and send it out. We've been sitting on the MLK files, the JFK files, the 9/11 files, the what else are we waiting on, Josh?
Epstein
files. That's the one I was thinking. And Pam Bondi specifically needs to probably be arrested. I mean, Matt Gaetz not getting nomination is mind blowing to me, and then giving it to Pam Bondi. I mean, her number one thing was Epstein files released day one. Day one Epstein files day one. Josh, what did we get?
We got bullshit. We got nothing.
We got less than what that has already been produced. And so all of these things are linked. JFK, MLK, Epstein files, 9/11, all these files are linked, but they have to be linked because they're the only thing that's not ever released. And so the question is, how does a senator like Tom Cotton, I know you don't have the answer, you're not Tom Cotton, but you spent some time up there and you kind of know the roles that these people play. How does a senator have the power or the position, the money, the pull, or whatever it takes to stop something like the JFK files from coming out?
Maybe not himself exclusive for me, but the point that I got there when Tucker said, I think Tucker's the one that said it, you got that call and said, hey, you didn't know this, you had this missing information. Usually that's relationships. And so where one senator doesn't have that much power, certainly a group of them do. And I'd be interested to, I'd like to look under the covers and see what that's all about, to be quite frank with you. My curiosity is really up on that.
Yeah, I think I think we have an idea. I mean, if you look at the kind of hand holding that's going on in the Republican Party right now, and we're going to watch a clip on. Well, we're not going to watch a clip on Massie, but we're going to talk about Massie here in a little bit about. He's kind of stepping out of the circle of this Trump administration and kind of taking a lot of heat, and I think that's what happens when you. Don't go along to get along in D.C. and that bureaucracy is you're kind of chastised. And I mean, Massie's probably one of the most liked congressmen right now. And so why would Trump want to primary him simply because he doesn't want to vote for a CR bill? And I would say it's because he steps out of that circle that they have up there. And I mentioned all of that to mention that that circle is tied to the non-releasing of the JFK, the 9/11, MLK, and the Epstein files.
Establishment.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
where do you stand? I mean,
well,
how do you feel?
I'll follow Massie in the aspect that he says everyone in D.C. has a AIPAC handler, except him.
But before we get into that, because that's kind of its own rabbit hole, I think it's pertinent to bring up the fact that Thomas Massie is a deficit hawk. That is something he's very passionate about. He's a libertarian. And I think that, though I don't agree with Massie on absolutely everything, the AIPAC thing is definitely important. We'll get into that. But for this issue, we're talking like what Donald Trump has honed in on in his second term is cutting the budget, is doing all these things to bring down the deficit. And I agree with Massie that I think this is an opportunity to threaten with government shutdown, to use that leverage to get more of what we want. And think about what he's saying. What Thomas Massie is saying, I've been on the Hill for 12 years, nothing changes. No compromise is ever made, not in any meaningful way, and we need to put a stop to that now. And Donald Trump is threatening to primary him. From the people's point of view, I don't see that there's nothing wrong with what Thomas Massie said. But the establishment, the Republican establishment, and this is not a Democrat thing, this is an establishment thing, which is both. They come in and they say, we're going to primary you, we're going to kick you out, you're a problem for us, and hey, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. They always say that. They always want to kick the can further down the line instead of because what Thomas Massie did, that was sacrificial. He put his career on the line, and and look what happened. He got threatened with the primary. It takes those kind of balls to change anything.
I would say there's only two ways to hold positions or to maintain your position in Congress and in the Senate. You either have to follow the direction of the administration or MAGA, or you have to answer to your constituents and do what you tell them that you're going to do. Those are only two things. And Massie is one of those people. I would say Rand Paul is another one of those people. And they are naturally libertarians because that's just what it takes at that level to do, to vote on your conscience, essentially what he's doing. So, yeah, I think the Tom Cotton thing, being a senator, making those phone calls, he's obviously being lobbied by somebody, and the question is who. It's the same question of why have we not gotten the Epstein files? Why were the doors not knocked in at the SDNY, the FBI office in New York when they were holding those files? Why do we not have the 9/11 files, JFK files, all of it, all the way down? I mean, we've been promised these things for at least, some of them 15, 16 years. I know JFK files were supposed to be released in like 2004. So there's somebody up there that's got a really big safe with a lot of stuff in it. And it's not just JFK files. It's
so how do you guys see the value in knowing? I mean, I'm kind of the mindset, all right, that happened. It'd be nice to know, but we're moving. You hear me say this all the time. We're moving forward. We're moving forward. I mean, are we being hamstrung by revisiting all this? What kind of value does it give us from a Republican standpoint? I don't want to dwell too much on the past.
You want to take it? Well, the value. Okay, so the question is, what is the value of knowing? What is the answer that what is the benefit that we get from knowing the answer or the question of who is behind all of these things? It's obviously a singular group of people. We can. parse it out.
You
However,
got a name for these people, don't you?
well, there's a lot of names for them all throughout history. But the question really is what. It really doesn't matter who they are. It matters that they are, and
that they can,
and that they can.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And because they can, they are an enemy to us because they are. Everybody wants to tout this idea of we're the administration of transparency. Transparency good. Democracy dies in darkness. All of these catchphrases because everybody understands that the only way forward is to understand all of the avenues that have been taken to do anything, and the ones that are shaded are a usurpation of us being the American people. And so the question is, what's the value in knowing, well, who is your enemy? Who are you fighting? If we're fighting a people or a group that is a secret that we don't know exists, how are we supposed to fight that in general? And so the value would be we then know who the enemy actually is.
So I'm okay with attacking that one on a side note, but I wouldn't want it front and center where it gets in the way to other progress.
But I would address it in the way that Pam Bondi wants to, or Pam Bondi gets her nomination and confirmation and then says Epstein files, and then what, we 2 weeks in now? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of, the conversation has died down. We'll never get the Epstein files.
Right. And to kind of dumb down Zeb's point, it's the implication. Because think about it like this. People have been talking, from the moment JFK was shot, people were crying conspiracy theory. But like to this day, how many, like 60 years? It's been that long. And the official FBI documents on this will not be released. We're seeing huge efforts to be put against that. And Donald Trump said, he went on Joe Rogan several months before the election, and Joe Rogan asked him about this. He said, you were saying this in the first term. You said you were going to release the JFK files, release the MLK files, and Donald Trump, they could have a mind control device planted on him. He's still going to let things slip. That's just who he is. And he said, well, I looked at him and I thought, like, wow, this is a lot for people to handle. The mere fact that he said that alone should get people's wheels turning. Why is knowing what happened to MLK? Because the worst case scenario I can think of is, he was killed by our government. But that has huge implications. Our own government assassinating its president, and I think we'll definitely speculate. I think it goes even deeper than that. I think the conspiracy is a total network thing, and the fact that they cannot afford to let that be released today shows that it's an important battle to be had. It's not just like, I know who actually did 9/11. It was Mamougadou instead of Osama bin Laden.
I think at absolutely best case scenario, there's nothing in the files. But if there's nothing in the files, that means that the government is perpetuating conspiracy theories to force the American people to have enemies that don't exist. Now, I don't believe that, but that's what would happen if it was even best case scenario.
And you think all these are linked? It's an agenda linked by one entity.
I think it has.
That's what y'all think?
No, it has to be linked because of the way that power
by an entity,
not necessarily
by the way that power works. There's a void that must exist, and so you can't have two powers that can control the same thing all at one time. And if they do, then they are essentially the same power. And what I mean by that is, if somebody has enough power to stop the Epstein files, somebody has enough power to release the Epstein files. These two things cannot coexist. And the same thing with JFK, 9/11, MLK files. And this has been going on for 60 years, like we talked about. JFK files has been going on since whenever he was killed.
63.
Mid-60s, yeah.
Yeah.
So these powers have existed for a long time, powers plural, if we assume two or more. But we can't assume two or more because that's just the way things operate.
And it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that George Carlin bit.
At least in the intelligence world as we see it now. We could talk about lobbying where pharma has more power than, some other groups, but in the world of intel, there's a singular power that has to have the last say.
The point is, it doesn't need to be like an eyes wide shut thing, Illuminati, where all these people meet up in one place at one time and then discuss their malicious plans for each other. It's like this George Carlin bit. I forget, it was on some show, but he was basically saying, you don't need a formal conspiracy theory when all the people that are in charge went to the same schools, go to the same places, meet with the same people. You don't have to have this sort of communicated formal conspiracy when all these people in charge already believe the same thing. So it, like Zeb said, it can be multiple different factions, but working as one divided entity, if that makes sense.
And in fact, it's a more effective way to do things. If you decentralize the thing, it can't be attacked head on.
Exactly. You can't point to it because it's everywhere. It's everyone.
That'd be pretty elaborate, though, wouldn't it?
I don't think it will, but it's been going on a long time. The question is, because once you answer the question of who is the enemy in this aspect, then it's been going, I mean, since JFK files. I mean, how long would it take to create this decentralization? I mean, I would argue we have a slightly nationalistic movement that's decentralized because we all believe something similar. And that's getting the ball rolling on this conversation that we're having. Not this one, but the what is an American conversation. I don't think it takes long to get things rolling in that aspect, especially when people feel like they've been disenfranchised in many, many different ways. But yeah, when you have senators that are able to make phone calls like this, should they have power? Yes, but they shouldn't be able to reach in their hand inside of the FBI or CIA to stop something like Epstein files or JFK files.
Agreed.
Along with the bureaucracy that just want to hold them in New York. It's like send the marshals up there, arrest these people. I mean, they're traitors. If they're blocking Pam Bondi or Donald Trump or whoever else calls for JFK files that are higher in their chain, I mean, these people need to be arrested for treason.
And I'm telling you, 4 years, we won't have them. It's not going to happen. I know Zeb and I argue with this. I'm more of a black pillar, as they say, more of nothing ever happens. But it's hard. I don't think we're going to see it. But that is the problem. That should be concerning to people.
Well, if you're ever going to see it, it'd be during this administration.
I think so too.
True.
Otherwise, it's.
I don't know. I don't know. We can kind of speculate on 2028. I think we got a good chance of retaining the executive branch.
Barring no miscue, like we were speaking about earlier offline.
Miscue.
Yeah. You can stay forever if you don't make mistakes.
But yeah, talking about 2028 and kind of this nationalist discussion that we're having in general, this is JD Vance. I just picked this up like 20 minutes ago. This finished.
Will not take a lecture on decorum from a party that incited an insurrection. I appear to live.
That's the wrong video, Josh.
That was yesterday's tranny.
Josh, tell Rodney about the tranny while I find this other video.
Oops. Yeah.
YouTube probably blocked us now since I said the T word.
Oh shoot. Oops. But basically, we were reviewing that video yesterday, Rodney, and it was I don't even remember the state, but that was like a state Congress woman. And there was some drama where basically there was like they were having a session.
We do not protect our nation's manufacturing.
We'll get the technical aspect down one day.
Tell me, give me 2 seconds. I'll figure it out.
All right.
Take a lecture on decorum from a party.
We do not protect our nation's manufacturing.
Anyway, okay, so we were talking about this transgender individual the other day who basically, I mean, do we want to continue talking about this now that you've got the correct video pulled up?
You and Rodney can discuss this
so,
debacle, if you will. I want to apologize to all of the listeners out there, watchers. Send me some money so we can buy a producer.
He's rusty. He's just coming off of a week's vacation and a birthday boy from last week.
Oh, I'm catching you, Rodney. See?
You're Jesus' age.
Getting some gray in my beard like that.
But we were talking about this Sarah McBride.
Tim is his name.
Tim's his dead name. But Tim McBride, there was like a session was going on, and the chairman said, Mr. McBride.
I saw that.
Yeah, and then a different guy was like, how dare you call him that? And then they're like, all right, session, and it was adjourned over like a big, a grandstanding sesh, basically. Right. That's what happened. So we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, trannies trip me out, dude. Especially white knight over tranny. That's crazy.
Oh, dude.
But yeah, I got it fixed, guys. I got it fixed. This is, like I said, this is J.D. Vance. We were talking about 2028. This is J.D. Vance, and then kind of a nationalistic idea. Again, Josh likes to talk about J.D. Vance has his script because he's bought out by Peter Thiel, which I don't necessarily disagree, but I just like the scripts.
No, I don't think he was bought by Peter Thiel. I think he was grown in a lab by Peter Thiel.
I mean, I did see something on him the other day where he's changed his name like 3 times or whatever over the years.
J.D. Bowman, which is very, J.D. Hamill, and then now J.D. Vance.
Yep, which is very.
Where's your Semper Fi, man? We got to stick with our Marines.
Your Marine photographers.
I'm a fan of Vance. I like what he's saying. I wasn't at first. The first 2 weeks of him being nominated for VP, I was a little wishy-washy. I didn't like the Vance pick. I'll admit that, but I think he had an arc of kind of coming to terms, kind of building into it. I mean, maybe Peter Thiel did build J.D. Vance in a lab, and they just switched him out about 2 weeks in.
He's grown into the position. Would you
Absolutely,
agree that he's
has
grown into the position?
Yes,
he's stepped up at every level.
I would have never picked him for VP. I would have imagined a Tim Scott VP, but Tim Scott still got married after his non-VP pick, which is crazy to me.
I mean, if he didn't, then he would definitely be ousting himself. So, potentially speculating. I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
This is a short clip on J.D. Vance.
We do not protect our nation's manufacturers. We lose a fundamental part of who we are as a people. Making things, building things, working with our hands is America's heritage, and that heritage is alive and well in this facility.
I mean, he's absolutely right here. I mean, America is a country of producers. I mean, and then you have, what really kind of ticks me off a little bit is you have people like Vivek Ramaswamy coming in here and saying Americans are lazy. But it's like, dude, you're from India. You make T-shirts. Like, America is a country of production. That's what we do. We aren't the headquarters for call centers. Mm-hmm. We produce things until they're exported because of things like NAFTA. So, I like Vance. I think, compared to Pence as a VP pick, especially in this kind of age that's going on right now, is his, head and shoulders above him.
So Pence was just really non-existent. I mean, it was like a shadow.
Well, I think he was a traditional VP.
He was to that point. He definitely was. It's a new day. I keep saying that, but it's a new day, and this VP here, like the rest of the cabinet, they're showing a lot of initiatives.
Because I don't want to go too far down. Like we've talked about my concerns about J.D. Vance before, so I don't want to rehash those right now. But I definitely think to you guys' point, I think that we're clearly seeing whether it's malicious, whether not, it's out of the goodness of his heart. There's definitely this grooming of J.D. Vance to take up the nomination in 2028 once Donald Trump is no longer part of the equation.
You know, before the vice president was just an extension of the president, and nobody really got excited about or paid much attention to. JD's kind of his own man. I mean, he can draw a crowd on his own. People are interested in him. He's set himself apart somewhat.
And Trump is letting that happen. People, you know,
Which
I work with
maybe
Ken.
read more into that than
I am, but like, you know, I work with Kennard, and he said that. What did he say? Oh, like when the presidency started, he was like, man, Donald Trump needs to get out of the way and let J.D. Vance take it, because Donald Trump's too bombastic, but he's never going to let somebody upstage him. But he's actually been giving Elon Musk and J.D. Vance a lot of screen time, which is uncharacteristic of him, whether or not, you know, someone's got a gun to his head under the table, or it's he's just, you know, tired. He's happy with what they're doing and letting it happen naturally.
Well, I think J.D. Vance is more bombastic than Trump is, but the difference is it is presented in a way that is more statesmanlike. What J.D. Vance says is significantly further right than what Trump says.
Can you give me an example?
Well,
Trump's been talking about
We do not protect our nation's manufacturers. We lose a fundamental part of who we are as a people. Making things, building things, working with our hands is America's heritage, and that heritage is alive and well in this facility.
I mean, Trump said basically that in 2016, though. That's not like a new thing that I wouldn't say.
I mean, that's
definitely
not
right wing.
crazy. I mean, that's just from today.
Yeah, but can you give me?
I mean, that's baseline.
That's exactly my point. Is it baseline?
Well, we talk about American heritage. I mean, what is, again, this is the question. What is an American? Is it the production? Have we been as productive post 65 Hart-Celler as we have before?
we've been riding on our reputation for decades now.
We have.
Without
right.
performing. Mm-hmm. And now we're performing. You know, I thought when I first saw Elon Musk on an interview with Trump to the media, I said, there's no way this is going to work because Elon's talking way too much and there's no way Trump's going to put up with this. But I think I
agree with you.
But I think Trump's kind of embraced it. He's got some people running with him. Before, he just had to do it all himself. He surrounded himself around people that believes the way he does, and I think he's got a high level of confidence in about everybody he picks.
I agree with you. I do think that Trump has given Elon just a smudge too much. Like, especially when he came to the Oval Office and started, they had his press conference in the Oval Office. The kids, whatever. I can kind of get behind bringing kids in public a little bit more. I just don't think it should have been in the Oval Office. It was unpresidential and almost disrespectful, but obviously Trump agreed to it, so it's not.
But like you just said, there's an endearing characteristic about having a child there too, because so many of us see that and we kind of relate with it
it's
to
relatable.
some degree. So you got that group.
But I also don't have
unpresidential. You got that group says.
I also don't have 14 kids with six women, 7, something like that.
Well, and to your point, like we were getting before the show started, we were dogging on Zelensky for wearing a tracksuit into the White House. I don't think wearing a blazer over a T-shirt that says tech support and a ball cap in the White House is exactly very appropriate behavior either. Granted, Elon Musk has Asperger's. But I think it's okay. Like, does he not have people that are there to kind of tell him, all right, dude, you need to wear a suit. You need to change it up a little bit.
Well,
This is all fine and dandy.
Don't you young bucks kind of embrace that, though? Isn't that...
To a point.
To an extent. I got a T-shirt on right now, kind of, but it's a nice T-shirt.
It's Flannel Friday.
It's a nice T-shirt.
No collar.
But, yeah, kind of we do, but there's definitely a place and time, and we want to get back to this tradition. No, I'm not saying wear a suit out there every day, but... there's a place and time, there's a position where you should dress nice, and the Oval Office is one of those places.
I agree.
Which I want. We talked about earlier, kind of getting into who you want in different positions of power. I think as a president, who do you want there? A vice president, who do you want there? Some of these senators. We talk about Tom Cotton. We talk about Congressman Massie. We talk about Congressman Fry. What. You've been up there. You've talked to all these people. You have your opinions on different people. Who is, or who do you see as a good let's just start with vice president. Is Vance like the better of the vice presidents that you can think about? Or would you want like, literally everybody before him that is just kind of sat back and just done the things that they were supposed to do?
I want Senator Kennedy in every possible spot.
We haven't mentioned Senator Kennedy.
I've met with him.
I would put him up with Massie. I like him. I think he's extremely intelligent. He just has that Southern twang to him,
which is endearing
to us.
And and many underestimate him, but just because of that dialect. Which is
what we're talking about.
I thought you were talking about RFK Jr.
No, Senator Kennedy is Louisiana. Yeah, I think he's Louisiana. Real thick accent. Yeah.
Is he younger?
Smart.
No, older gentleman. In his 70s with the wavy.
I think I know who you're talking about.
You've seen him many
times. Is that
times.
the dude who's like, you want to get rid of the police? Next time you're in trouble, call a crackhead. That's him?
That would be a statement he would make.
Is that you know who I'm talking about?
He's full of sound bites, but they come off really as authentic.
Yeah,
it's really thick accent.
I'm
he's
pretty
the
sure
only
I know
one
who you're
up there
talking about. Yeah,
that could win a race with that thick of an accent.
He's an attorney by trade, but he speaks that common language that's funny but makes so much sense.
I would compare. It would be like if you took Theo Vaughn and shoved him into the house or the Senate.
Give Theo Vaughn a master's degree or a PhD. You got Senator Kennedy.
Yeah, we need to react to some of Senator Kennedy stuff. But yeah, I think that's a good position to for somebody like him in the Senate. I think that's extremely.
But good. I do think it's just a new day. The J.D. Vances, we're seeing things, and it's partly because of your generation. We're seeing a shift and change in things. And again, as I've stated before, although we don't agree on everything, I welcome so much of this because what we've done, and this is a cliche statement, but just hasn't worked. It's time to try some things that works.
Well, Ken was talking about this morning. He mentioned something to the effect of it was the right thing at that time. And I just want to disagree with that.
Speaking of what? What's the right thing?
What I think they were talking about economic policies. Right. Like we could just take one for instance. I mentioned NAFTA earlier.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Was it okay? Yeah. So exactly, it doesn't. The time is irrelevant. Is it right? Is the question. And so, at the right thing at the right time just condemns everybody after that. And so that's what we need to be thinking about. We don't need to be thinking about 10, 15 years. We need to think about 100. 200 years. I mean, we have children and grandchildren that are going to have to grow up in this country. And when you push something like NAFTA that destroys entire states' economies, people lose jobs. Fathers lose jobs, and they have to make up for that on the back end when you destroy an economy for the sake of capitalism or free trade, because that is a principle that you have to balance in your mind. I know I've talked to a couple of people like, Congressman Robin Talon. He railed against NAFTA when he was in. Some of these people understood. He's a Democrat. He's a blue dog Democrat. I mean, prior to the shift, these people railed against this NAFTA idea where we outsource our workforce to foreigners. We have NAFTA. We outsource our workforce to foreigners, and then we have that kind of rolls along, and we have to need more workforce. So instead of outsourcing, we just insource them through green cards and H-1Bs. And then, that's what the 90s and 2000s. Now we're outsourcing it to machines. Soon it's going to be we're going to outsource it to AI. At the end of the day, all it's doing is destroying the employee or the American person.
And Rodney, I kind of want to get your take on that specifically, just to kind of rephrase what he said into a question. Is I want to know where you stand specifically on, because you're older. Are you technically a boomer? We've talked about this.
I am.
You're technically
barely
a boomer.
Yep.
So
barely,
a lot
barely
of
a boomer.
the
That's
issues,
a good one. Barely a boomer.
So a lot of the hang-ups that boomers have is over this sort of like capitalism versus communism debate. This is something he and I were talking about yesterday. And the way we feel about it is this distinction, this kind of rhetoric is no longer relevant, where what you're seeing now is where basically we've gotten to this extreme form of capitalism that is almost in practice the same thing as communism. At least that's what I believe. So I want to get what your opinion is of, like, have we gotten to a point where we need to start to regulate these companies more with the power of the government?
That's difficult because at heart I am a capitalist through and through.
Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, there we go. Let me ask you this question then, since, well, let me get them on screen so that people can see this pretty face. Let me ask you this question then.
I missed that part.
What would it take for you to come to terms? Not saying we are right, just kind of a hypothetical here. To come to terms with the idea that capitalism is always going to lead to this. So in order to not lead to this, what is outsourcing everything and destroying America as a people, what would it take you to come to terms with something like that?
So,
essentially give up your framework for how the world works.
Well, it's so embedded for so long. It's difficult for somebody like me to
it's
change.
Comfortable because it's almost a circle of confidence that has been built over time. I mean, I
received that comment. Outside of monopolies, I just have to stand my ground on survival of the fittest. I mean, I think that was introduced early on, biblical times, and I think it stood the test of time. So the survival of fitness is something I've subscribed to very strongly. The only way I'll deviate is when you get companies with monopolies. I mean, you've got to address that, and the only way to address it is through government regulations.
And if I could say because Zeb and I are not communists, so I want to make that perfectly clear. But what we think, and I don't want to speak for him, but definitely what I think
words don't even mean anything anymore. So
is that what you see is like communism is this pendulum swing all the way one way where government controls all assets. What I think we're starting to see, look at BlackRock. The pendulum has swung the other way where it's basically private companies controlling all assets to the point where we're getting to where, what's it called? Airbnb, they're buying up homes to rent out. Young people can barely afford homes in the first place. Now they can't even find them to get into debt to get them. And so I guess the kind of to emphasize what I was going at earlier is, at what point, what would it take for you, and maybe not you in particular, but like people of your generation, people that grew up with that sort of distinction, what would it take, do you think, for people en masse to say, you know what, maybe we should break up BlackRock, maybe we should break up Walmart?
I think you answered the question in your statement, and that's when it no longer works. To your point, I don't know how a younger couple today affords these houses. I bought a house.
They don't. You know what the average
first house in Florence was $87,000.
How old were you?
In a nice neighborhood. I was probably 28 or 29. I think that same house today is probably $300,000. I don't know how you do it.
Average.
So that would cause me to pause and say, look, there's got to be some kind of regulation. Here's the thing, okay? You guys are incredibly smart. I learn something every time I come here, I truly do. But when you use you got to shift your words, I believe. You can't even use the word communism. Make up another word that...
Well, that's what I was saying. The words don't even mean
because
anymore.
But when my generation hears you even use that word, we're checking out, right? Because we've been programmed with what we've seen.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you.
What do you suggest?
I don't have anything right off the top of my head.
The problem with
change words.
The problem with using new words is then we have to explain the definition.
Well, you
of
got
those
to explain it anyway because you're going to lose when you say communism.
We're not communists.
I get that. I get that. But if somebody just tuned in for a moment and and just got soundbite. Somebody could easily take this podcast, do sound bites, and y'all would look like enemy number one.
We need some traction. Let's go. Do it.
Where I listen to you, and I see you're coming from a place. You're coming from a place of really true care, but the verbiage sometimes y'all use. My generation,
it's too blunt.
Well, it is because you're using trigger word. I mean, communism is one of the big trigger words.
I agree with you, and here's why.
But I know y'all. I kind of feel like I know y'all.
The liberal idea that has kind of been birthed out of the 1950s, this post-war consensus, is that words have an inherent good attached to them, and communism would be that inherent evil.
That's right.
And so capitalism is an inherent good, and so when y'all hear words, it's automatically attached to that word. When
I hear communism, you want to know the word I hear? Satan.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And that's kind of that's exactly this kind of worldview. But y'all much deeper than that,
and they've got to know that you're much deeper than that. And I think when they watch you for any period of time, they quickly say these guys are very intelligent. They are thinking deeper. But somebody just tuning in and or sound bites, you guys have a difficult case. And
well, I definitely think younger people are coming around to our ideas, because you're what you have seen, and admittedly, you've seen a lot of young people in the college campuses being straight up communists, and that's because they are seeing firsthand the problems inherent with the capitalist system we have going on right now. Because there's nothing in the, back when it was the, like early 1900s, up until the 1950s, where it was like mom and pop hardware stores. Everything was locally sourced. Everything was local. And now with the introduction of the superstore, we basically have, like, it's a monopoly without being exactly a monopoly. I mean, if you have
basically, Josh is saying is controlling $20 trillion in assets not a monopoly? And how is that not a monopoly? Like $20 trillion, you could manipulate the stock market single-handedly. Well, not could, do. You do that.
So when I hear that, manipulating $20 million, here's where my thought pattern goes. I don't think about them. I think about all the mom and pops that have been discarded because of.
Well, what about when they buy out single family houses?
Yeah,
and so kind of to your point is these housing prices are rising, but and the age of first home buyers is like it was like 58, 56, 58 when I looked at it, which is insane. That's the average age of a first time home buyer right now today. 56, 58. It might be higher.
Almost got to show me that.
I'll go.
I know you don't.
No, I want to make sure. It might be worse than what I'm saying right now.
Wow.
It might be worse than that.
I mean, how does a 58-year-old get a 30-year mortgage?
But life insurance will pay for it.
But yeah. So go ahead.
So you say this younger generation is embracing that more. I mean, and I'll tell you a little reason for that. Because when you go off to college, you're already in a rebellion mindset. You're leaving mom and dad. You got all this freedom, and you're doing things. There's natural rebellion in that. And I think that's how the liberals get them, because they're in that mindset. Well, let's try something different. Let's be rebellious.
There's some truth to that, but I want to say this morning, because Ken was talking this morning, and we were talking about this issue in particular, and he brought up how, well, you also have to consider that there's a problem with laziness in this generation, and I acknowledge that. But here's the thing. We have to diagnose where that laziness comes from. Do you think if everyone born today was born at the same time as you, that they would still be lazy, like it's in their bones? No, it's because I think a lot of it is because A, the parents are encouraging that behavior, or B, because the amount of what you get on a return on investment, meaning like an 80-hour work week for someone working today, does not get you nearly as far as it did 40 years ago. So why do it?
So this is where I'll disagree with Ken, and I align with so much what he says. It's not even these kids' fault. It's my generation's fault, because the kids haven't changed today. They've not changed. Parenting has changed. And we've dove in that before. I mean, so much divorce. You've got mama overcompensating with giving. You got daddy overcompensating with giving in two distinct, different households. And I mean, what does that do to the kid? I mean, it gives him everything. He doesn't have to work for it. It's my generation that's at fault for. I don't call them lazy. It was lazy parenting is what it was. I point the finger back at, I didn't raise my son.
There's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons for the lazy parenting too. I mean, this is a cascading effect. It's amplified each generation to the point it is 56.
Wow.
Average age of home buyers is now 56,
That's
up from
nuts.
49. I mean, that's 7-year difference just year over year.
I bought my first house when I
like
was
Josh, do you think you'll ever buy a house without everything just crashing?
I mean, it's not even remotely on.
wages,
Like,
wages have not kept up with.
No.
Yeah.
We got lucky on ours, and we kind of
Well, you
made
got
money
plenty
over
of
time.
you got
I got
plenty of
money. Now,
Hey, he admitted it.
hey,
now.
no. We live.
Let me borrow a dollar, man.
we Maggie went to school and I worked while I
you
was in the
hard
Marine Corps,
workers.
and then when I got out of the Marine Corps, we stayed with her mom and dad for a little while until we made enough money to be able to get into a house and kind of get out of debt and get into a house. We did have a little bit of a safety net to allow us that foothold moving forward, and a lot of people don't have that. And so if you don't have that safety net and you're stuck at bottom, there's no way to get up. If you're stuck at bottom, you don't have anybody to kind of reach down, maybe help you up. Your bootstraps ain't going nowhere if you ain't got no leverage.
You got to wonder what kind of effect that's going to have in 5 to 10 years with, things going this way. You just got to wonder.
Yeah, and you have to consider the kind of effect it has not only on like the behavior in itself, but on a psyche. Like, what are and then think about like people that feel like by no fault of their own, simply because of the spending habits and the economy, are basically completely financially impotent. How are they going to raise their children? And then it's just this negative cascading effect.
It kills confidence. I mean, I could easily say, well, mom and daddy had a house at such and such. Well, I'm not even close to that. Yeah. Wow.
Like the same reason why childbearing is deferred. No longer people aren't getting married in their like their high school sweethearts. Now it's into their late 20s or even 30s.
Dating apps destroyed that. I mean, that's a whole video by itself.
Are we going? This is our next topic. Dating apps.
I mean, we can talk about the dating market. Josh got him a little girlfriend now. Spill the beans over here.
Is this a new?
Through a dating app. So
Did you?
yeah.
Listen. I avoided dating apps. I didn't avoid them. I predated them just barely. So I didn't have to deal with that.
I'll tell you this. I mean,
I feel like that's a nightmare,
it
dude.
worked out. It worked out, but I was on them for a long time, and for most of the time, it did not work out. So it's a rough battlefield out there. I feel bad for people that are currently in it.
I've never been on a dating app that I.
But we were kind of on the topic of
where were we?
Positions in government and who you would like to see as a VP. Who you would like to see as senators or congressmen.
I want to see businessmen. I want to see people that is demonstrated.
You don't want lawyers, Ronnie. You don't want lawyers. Just lawyers everywhere. Some more lawyers, and then some more lawyers on top of that.
There's value in some, but I want business people.
That's right. I think
business.
You want to talk about diversity. That's where you need some type of diversity where people have experiences in the real world making laws for the real world. If you send a bunch of lawyers, nothing against lawyers, but when you just have a pool of lawyers making laws, it's going to favor the law.
Yep. The way our whole system is, though, they make careers out of it now. So, I mean, only folks that can take a break from their work are lawyers. I mean, nobody else can afford to run these days. So we've kind of set it up that way.
Well, there you go. There's nobody can afford to live outside of their working, which kind of limits the pool of who can run for office.
100%.
I mean, it was
usually the privilege.
Well, it was set up initially to have business owners that wanted to contribute to society, civil servants. To not be able to make a living out of it. Now you got, people like Nancy Pelosi, which is worth some retarded amounts of millions of dollars.
I think
that
it was
makes $200,000 a year. That's we know, we know,
Everybody
and they
knows.
know we know.
Yeah, how
and they
you
just
not
keep
know?
doing it
Yeah,
because they have the power. Somebody up there has the power to be able to stop files from flowing out.
This secret entity you're talking about is giving them the nod.
It's not. It's not secret.
I don't know who it is.
Well, and that's the thing is, it's like, you know, when people talk about conspiracy theories, they're always like, well, if it's so organized, if they're so like evil and manipulative, how does the information get out? And it's like, because it doesn't really matter. The people are impotent. The people can't do anything. So, you know, for them to half-ass some like report, or, you know, if something leaks, it's like, yeah, well, whatever. What are they going to do?
I just despise the word they. They. Who is they?
He.
Yeah, well, they can kick us off YouTube. So I'm talking about the people that run YouTube. Okay, guys. But yeah, I mean, I agree with your position, Rodney. I think the term "they" is very ominous and shouldn't be used, but if we are correct, then it has to be used.
You mean you in my huddle? We're gonna break the huddle against Josh at some point.
I agree with you. I would rather not, but it is the way it is.
It bees that way.
It bees that way. It's crazy. Yeah. Anything else? Well, we got a little. We can speculate on a governor race for about 2 seconds. You know, we're at an hour. You can speculate on a governor race here. I don't know. Y'all probably don't want to do too much, but we've had a couple of decent governors in South Carolina, notably Strom Thurmond. But we have McMaster now, and got a couple of people looking at that governor's race. Who would you, or what would you like to see as a person, as a governor in South Carolina? I mean, Nikki Haley likes to boast. She brought all this manufacturing jobs, specifically Boeing, which she's on the board of, and she got paid off. But anyway, she brought all these jobs to South Carolina. Would you like to see a Nikki Haley 2.0, aka, or would you like to see somebody else?
So I'll answer it this way. Number one, I want a businessman. I want someone that's been through the fire, that can run. I want somebody like Trump. Somebody that has experience, has shown that they've got the savvy to run a business, that they're not a stuff coat, that they can act on the fly, that it's not their life goal to climb the ladder like some of them. If you get too ambitious and too self-promoting, to me that indicates not someone genuine for the people. And I think we've got some of those elements with our curtain folks. I want someone with some charisma. I mean, I just do.
So would you say like everybody's been riding Ron DeSantis for a little while. Mm-hmm. Is that somebody you would like in South Carolina? Would you want them to be more bombastic? Isn't the right term? More driven, more. What's the word I'm looking for?
So I like Ron.
Less reserved. I think Ron DeSantis is really reserved.
Do you?
Yeah,
I think
I'll be honest. I don't really get the appeal with him.
How reserved are you when you're going to fight an entity like Disney?
I mean,
that's not reserved.
That's
stepping out.
I'm always angry.
No. It's not that his actions aren't like totally reserved. Right. It's his character, his demeanor. He's very like sheepish and soft spoken.
So I went, where was it? Aiken. I was invited to ask a question when he rode all the way to Aiken, I believe, and he had a town hall. And they'd set me up to ask a question. Who's they? And I agree. I was a little bit taken back about the lack of charisma. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of effort and in terms of effectiveness, he's got it. But
I think he's an extremely polished speaker.
Yeah, but the charisma really wasn't there. I expected more.
It's like he's out there doing a robot dance, and everybody else is, got a little bit of rhythm to him.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, and I don't know, like if you're allowed to talk about it, but I can talk about it a little bit. Yeah. We were talking about Kennard, mm-hmm. and he was I forget who kind of got the ball rolling on that, but someone had dropped his name. Mm-hmm. He was lieutenant governor before. There was some campaign shenanigans, and he got basically kicked out of politics. And someone brought it up to him. I can't remember who. But you were asking me about before the show if he would be a good governor of South Carolina. I mean, I think he would, and like, do y'all want to kind of rehash that conversation for the audience?
So I'll start. I think Kennard would be an ideal candidate. He made a mistake, which all of us make, but if you really look at that mistake, it wasn't egregious as I wish he could tell that story to everybody, because the foul that he made was not as bad as it appeared. He's a businessman. He's certainly got charisma. He studies unrelentingly. I mean, he knows what he's going into. And I think he would I think he would do the same thing Trump. I think he would surround himself with folks that are not just holding a position because of name. I don't think he'd go to the usual suspects. And that's what has got us usual results. I think he'd step outside of that. I think Ken would be an excellent governor. Whether he's interested, who knows? Certainly people's approaching him, no doubt in my mind. His popularity is off the roof in this area, but remember what controls things. Greenville, Columbia, Charleston controls an awful lot, but he would have some name recognition there too.
And I know you're chomping at the bit, Zeb, but I just want to say this real quick before you get into it. I actually agree with you. I think Ken would be a great governor, but I think, knowing him personally, I work with him. I have a professional relationship with him. I think that he's at a point, and he's told me that he's not interested. He said this to me off the air, so I take him at his word for it. Not that he's not a little bit interested in it, but I don't think at the end of the day he's going to do it. He's 61 years old. He's got family. He's got a daughter in school, and I think his number one concern is his family. That's and right. to go from like being out of like mainstream politics itself for so long to be basically catapulted back into it at the governor of South Carolina level is going to put a giant target on his back. And I don't know if he's going to want to have to deal with that.
Well, so let me say this. For all the reasons you said no, I say yeah. 61 years old, I can tell you because I'm 61. Damn.
Was that Kevin Hart bit?
Yeah. Damn.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
Hey. Go ahead. You see that?
Don Cheadle.
So where was I before the Young Bucks rudely interrupted me? So
you're half his age.
At 61, and this is all relevant to the person, right? For whatever's there. I'm at the peak. I can tell you, looking back on I'm at the peak of my decision making, my mental processes. I've probably never been better. Now you can argue. What does that mean? Maybe nothing.
No, I'm just kidding.
And and also, I walk 4 miles a day. I eat healthy.
The realm of politics, 61 is relatively young.
Well, even physically, it is. You can still get a lot done. But the fact that his kids are grown and one's in college, to me, that's another reason to move forward. And look, we all know targets are on our backs, and family often is not off limits. And I can respect and understand anybody being reluctant, but because of that. But I just think he has competitive spirit about him, and I think he's probably considered, not unless his wife has said, no, forget about it. And I'm sure he would respect that.
And not to cut you off again, but I just wanted to say the 61 years thing, because in case Ken watches this, I'm not calling you old, Ken. I'm not saying like because you're 61, you
sounded like it to me. And I took offense too, Ken, so I took up for us.
Oh, no. Here I am trying to avoid getting in trouble.
You want to race around the block after the show?
You get Jack Rock over here and start running circles around Josh.
Yeah, and me.
We do need to get Jack in here. That'd be a good conversation.
He's an old buddy.
You haven't met Jack Scott, have you?
No.
He's a character. But
on
the question of running for South Carolina governor, I got a little bit of personal beef with Ken now, recent. But given who is currently running for the governorship, you're looking at Pamela Evett, Nancy Mace, most likely Alan Wilson, AG, and then there's a couple other names in there. I mean, this is not a great list to pick off of. I think if somebody with, if Russell Fry wants to run for governor, I would vote for Russell Fry over them. And in the same vein, I would given my personal views, I would probably vote for Ken amongst those three. And so, but in the same time, I would say that running a campaign and winning an election is not the same as running a country or a state as governor. I mean, these are two completely different things. And Rodney, I know when you were looking to run for your race, you looked at some other races, and I kind of told you, I feel like you had, we haven't had this conversation. I feel like you had some yes men in your corner that told you could win a race. That I told you I don't think you can win. It's not a matter of you losing that race. I just don't think that somebody else could lose that race. That was the incumbent. I mean,
gotcha.
The stars have to align to in this space where it's all about opportunity.
100%.
Is there an opportunity there for Ken? Probably, if nobody else jumps in the race. But if you get somebody that jumps in the race that has any relevant position right now, I think they take that just on the nature of what's kind of going on. That's about all I go. Before I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good governor, but I think when you see the kind of political persecution that they put Donald Trump through, and I said to you before the show, I think the establishment was basically even the establishment level at the South Carolina establishment is responsible for throwing him out the first time. And they're definitely going to do everything they can to drag him and his family through the mud. And I don't think he wants to put his family through that, which is totally understandable.
But I think some of those players, I actually got names that come to mind. I think some of them have exited the building. I don't think some of those same folks still
Lindsey
hold
Graham's
power.
still there.
Lindsey Graham.
Dude, what? Okay, so here's a question: How does Trump endorse Lindsey Graham, but want to spearhead a primary against Thomas Massie? Like that, those two things don't make sense to me. You talk about loyalty.
Well,
I'll tell you,
Lindsey Graham's stick, and I know
Lindsey Graham slithers like this.
His stick is that big. Massie's is nowhere near. He doesn't hold near the influence that Lindsey Graham does. Like him or not like him, Senator Graham has a lot. It carries a big stick.
I think it was a conversation Joe Aniello and I had on a podcast we did while you were gone, which is basically, I think Trump had this moment before he ran in 2016. He had this epiphany where he's like, I want to leave the country in a better place than I found it. The people in right now are idiots and I can do better. But it was almost like this spiritual conversion where he had this conversion, but he needed in like a Christian, like spiritual mentorship. But who was there? The establishment. And he had all these people whispering in his ear for the last decade. And I think he basically has been captured by the establishment, not to like this insane degree where he's being like puppeteered, mind controlled. But I think when enough people, the people not that he surrounds himself with, but the people that merely because he is the president are just there already.
Well, you could point
they're
to
whispering in his
somebody
ear.
like the Adelsons.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he refused money first term, second term he takes all he wants.
Exactly. And I think if everyone around him is whispering in his ear the same thing, eventually it just becomes the truth in his mind.
Well, let's maybe we can close with this, or we can go as long as you want. But the most important occurrence that could happen with our governor would be an endorsement for Trump. And this is the way I see it. So you've seen Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott. You've seen she's been very loyal to Trump, and she's courted him, and I mean to the point that it's easy to see from even a novice. However, then you've got Alan Wilson, who's
okay. Let me stop you right there. How heavy of how much weight does a Trump endorsement carry? We're talking about 30 points here.
Well, I can't put a numeric value on it, but on your show, you guys even tout that his
Well, I guess
It's
the
more
way I
that
see
normally it doesn't. Normally endorsement doesn't work, but when y'all show
Trump
your title all the
endorsement
time,
does.
that Trump endorsement
Yeah.
works.
you know, we can look at, you know, we talked about Russell Fry earlier in this segment. And, you know, Russell was running against 7 other people in his race, and he got that Trump endorsement. He won at 51%, which is, you know, he was running against Tom Rice. Granted, voted for a Trump. He signed a Trump impeachment paper, which kind of didn't help his numbers. But I think that Trump endorsement pulled 30-35% for Fry.
Yeah,
which is an insane number when you look at it like
way more
that.
than any of us thought. But so let's break it down quickly.
Yeah,
though.
not any of us.
Well, most. I mean, even well, that's you can say that now. This is
I got proofs.
You got,
I got proofs.
is that plural proofs?
Proofs.
But so let's break it down
yeah.
quickly though. So we talked
But
about.
yeah, keep going.
We
No,
talked
sorry,
about
I
Lieutenant.
lost it.
That's all right. We talked about Lieutenant Governor vying for his endorsement. But then you've got Alan Wilson, who Joe Wilson is his dad's a congressman, and he's been very loyal to Trump.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that I think that I don't think there'll be an endorsement.
You think he stays out of the race? I think that's a good call.
And even you know, certainly he would go to McMaster's, who's been very ultimately ultimate supporter in every way. And you know who.
Well, I mean, South Carolina's.
Who would McMaster say? I mean, it'd be hard for him to say.
Well, South Carolina's full of it.
Over Joe Wilson.
You think McMaster would support Mace?
No, I don't think I think he'll stay out of as well, even though there's no fallout for him because he's finished as well. But so and then Mace very much courts it. But I think I was reading Fitz News. You spoke about him a little bit earlier, and he talked. They were asking about would there be an endorsement there, saying that Pamela Devitt has already stated that he's kind of endorsed her. Well, he hasn't, but a lot of that Trump money, I think, has funneled some money into her campaign. So I would guess, it'd be just strictly a guess, an educated guess, that there will be no endorsement from.
Do you think Lindsey Graham comes down and endorses somebody?
How could he not? I mean, it just seems
I don't know, because again, he all these people are high level people. Alan Wilson's been a long time. Pamela Devitt.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Is you have.
I don't know that he would.
I mean, South Carolina is so red and Trump country that it's hard to kind of pick and choose at that. I think I agree with you. We might not see a Trump endorsement, and then you'll have McMaster. He might endorse, but how much weight does that carry?
He's got no reason. He's really got no reason to.
Yeah.
I mean, other than loyalty, but all of those. Alan Wilson, I'm sure, is a great friend of his. Joe Wilson was certainly.
Well, how does he not endorse his lieutenant governor?
That's a good point, but I don't think he does.
I think.
What do I know? But
yeah.
Win on your own merits, governor candidates. Win on those merits.
Yeah, run a campaign, win the campaign. That's a good one. We had a good discussion today. We touched on a lot. We kind of went all over the place, guys. But anything before we close this out? Josh?
I'm good, boss man.
Ronnie.
All hearts and minds are clear on this end too, sir.
All right. Well, we want to thank the people for watching today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, consider subscribing, and we will see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.
Happy weekend. St. Patrick's Day this weekend?
Monday?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.